My relationship with Candlewick began with this book, 12 Rounds to Glory, the story of Muhammad Ali. And I've had plenty of books with them in between, and it's been a great relationship from the very beginning. So first, I'm going to give you a little background about how this book came to be. So the idea for 12 Rounds to Glory came because simply I'm a fan of boxing. And when you're an author, you always want to write about what you're interested in. And if I was going to spend a few years working on a project, I would want it to be on the great boxer Muhammad Ali. So the first thing that I had to do is, once I made this decision, I dove into my research and I went online. I started with a lot of online stuff, but I read plenty of books. There were so many books written on him. But really, more than anything, I wanted to watch his fights. I wanted to see him alive. I wanted to see him in action. I wanted to gain a spirit and a sense of this great man, Cassius Clay, who would become Muhammad Ali. And so I really went crazy on the research, getting as much information as I could. Once I had all the research done, then I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to tell the story? Well, in writing, you basically have three voices: the first, the second, and the third. First, I am going to do this. This story is happening to me. The second voice, you. This happened to you. This is going to happen to you. The third voice, this happened to him or her or them. So most stories are told in the first or the third. Very few are told in the second voice, the you. I decided to tell this in the you voice. And the reason that I did that is because one of the things that I came across in the research of Muhammad Ali is he talked about how he's just a man, warts and all. He's just a man, and he wants to be judged as such for his failures as well as his successes. And to that end, I wanted to be like he was sitting right in front of me. And I'm telling him his story. You did this, you did that, you did this. Look at how, great you are, what a role model you are, what life you've led. And so I chose to use the second voice. So that made it really easy for me to hone in my story. Now, to hone the story, that's where the research comes in. I had to determine a length of time. Was it going to be a specific moment in his life? I could do a whole book about the very first time he learned how to fight, which I included. Round 2, the poem that I performed, Igniting the Flame. But I could easily do a whole book on that. Or was I going to do it on him as an Olympian or him as an activist? I could do all of those little things, but I decided, you know what? This is about him. So let's make it from him as a baby until the most recent moment at that point in time where he had a moment of glory. Because at the recording of this video, it is 2021 and Muhammad Ali is no longer alive. But of course, when it was written, he was. So I stopped at the Olympics because that was just kind of this apex moment of his whole life that, just encapsulated him, of everything that he had overcome, to be standing literally there with this torch in his hand. To me, that just made for a real exceptional ending moment. One of the things that my editor, Karen Lotz, who was the publisher of Candlewick, one of the things that she did is she always asked great questions that challenged me to create scenes that could easily become cliche, keep them from becoming cliche or from being weak. And in that instance, it was the fight scenes. And I still remember some of the language that she used. It wasn't profane or anything like that, but the directness that she used in terms of a fight, it just literally just hit me in the face with the strength of those words. And I took that to heart, and that's the spirit of which, I wrote the fight scenes. When it came to actually writing the fight scenes, then I would literally watch the fights and just describe what I wrote or what I was seeing. But I was writing it in poetry, in verse. So it was kind of like, watching a movie in English and then translating it into French. as you're going along, So I had to literally translate what I was seeing into words. But that's what made it strong. And obviously you can't do that for a really long time because you lose the reader and it gets really difficult to follow. But I knew that when I did the fight scenes, that was how I wanted to do them, is I wanted it to be literally as blow by blow. That's where the you voice, the second person, really comes in handy, because it's like I'm right there telling them, you did this, you did that, and so it's actually a really cool technique that allowed the story, that allowed the reader to really connect with Muhammad Ali on a really personal level. Probably the best thing about after 12 Rounds to Glory came out, and not even after it even came out, but after I finished it, it made me a better writer. To me, that was like getting my master's degree or doctorate degree in writing, because of the research that was involved, the creation of a story, the taking of that story and telling it in verse, and then using a variety of different types of verse to tell the story. It was just challenging on so many levels. And the fact that it was for kids made it even more so, because you can't rely on big words and fancy words to explain things. You have to rely on simplicity, so that a child can understand what exactly it is that you're saying. So in that regard, this book challenged me far more than any book had at that point. Before that, I had other books with Candlewick, one of which I'll tell you about next. So before 12 Rounds to Glory actually came out, I had completed 2 books for Candlewick, specifically Hoop Kings and Hoop Queens. Now, to this point, my books had consisted of me doing poems about basketball. So it only made sense that I do a book on the pros in basketball. And I did that with Hoop Kings and Hoop Queens. And I had so much fun doing it. So I'll take you behind these 2 books to break down a few little things that you may not know what went into the creation of them. So let's start with the ladies. Hoop Queens. So when Hoop Queens first came out, this was years ago, and the WNBA was pretty young at this point. And the pro players that were there mostly had come from the Olympic team, and there are a number of great young college and international players, but the WNBA at that time was not what it is today. Now, I say that because when I was doing research for the players, it was difficult to find information on them. YouTube wasn't quite what it is right now in terms of the availability of games that the women played. So there just wasn't a lot to actually watch. But what I did find, I was able to put to great use to working out a great poem for each player. So let's take a look at one player in particular, Tisha Penicheiro. Now, Tisha Penicheiro is a point guard. Now, a point guard on a basketball team has the same job basically as a quarterback on a football team. Their job is to pass or feed the ball to their teammates. So when I sat down to write her poem, I watched, one of the things that I learned in watching her play is she really was passing. She was really feeding people. And I said, so who is somebody that feeds people? And I said, a cook. Nope, even better, a chef. And chefs have all of these great words related to cooking, specifically verbs. Now, whenever I'm writing a sports poem, it has action, and action comes from verbs. So that's the first thing that I look at in writing a poem, is the verbs. Now, in this case, since she's a chef on the court, I look to the world of cooking, and cooking has its own language. So I would watch Food Network and I'd write interesting verbs down whenever I heard them, and then I would apply them to basketball. So let's take a listen to see how I flipped cooking into basketball with the chef. Racing and running and spinning and swerving in total control while feeding and serving delicious assist with wrist flick tricks. Chef T serves dishes with slick style, skill, finesse, and flair, feeding teammates while twisting midair, slicing and dicing and shaking and flipping, mixing and tossing and chopping and whipping, no-look passes, underhand passes, teaching skip stop, behind the back classes, serving sweet treats, putting points on the board, keeping hungry teammates, coming back for more. Hope you enjoyed that poem about Tisha Penicheiro. I had so much fun writing that one, and it's one of the poems that I perform to this day when I speak in schools because it's a really fun poem and I love representing the girls with the great skills. So I had so much fun writing Hoop Queens, but of course I did Hoop Kings as well. Got to represent the men. Of course, I didn't forget about the men, so I did Hoop Kings. Now, Hoop Kings features 12 of the best NBA players from that time period. Now, that was the hard part about doing that book because you're picking 12 great players out of so many great players in that time. But most importantly, the question was, how many of those players would be remembered in more than 5 years? Because good players come and go, but great players linger around quite a while. And one of those players I knew would be Shaq. Now, for Shaq's poem, his poem is actually a pretty simple poem, what we call an acrostic. But as you can see, I have to open the book extra just so you can get to it. And that's because what we decided to do here is we decided to show you a life-size image of Shaq's shoe. But as you can see, it doesn't fit in the trim size and the traditional trim size, which is actually pretty big. It has to go all the way out to an extra page. And one of the great things about doing this is that even though this book came out years ago, when I speak in schools to this day, that's one of the things that kids are so excited about is to compare their shoe size to Shaq's shoe size. Now, the great thing about doing a book like Hoop Kings, even though it features modern athletes from that time, basketball is a sport with new athletes coming on all the time. And so I'm so happy that I finally got a chance to showcase the newest crop of talent in Hoop Kings 2. Boom! There it is. Hoop Kings 2, New Royalty. I can't tell you how excited I am to have this book finally coming out. As you can see, it's not even quite out yet as I'm recording this because this is what's called the last stage right before the book actually comes out, called an F&G, which stands for folded and gathered. So this is the final step. It's actually done. Basically, the next step is pretty soon. I'll be getting this hardcover edition of this, but that's not going to keep me from sharing a poem with you. So first, we got 12 new royalty. So you want to know who they are? Let's find out. And here they are, Hoop Kings 2, New Royalty. Anthony Davis, Blake Griffin, Giannis Antetokounmpo, James Harden, Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and Steph Curry. Now, the poem that I'm going to read for you right now, normally I would perform it, but it's still fresh. I haven't even had a chance to pick out which poem I'm going to even memorize when I speak in schools. So that'll come next. But for now, I'm going to read to you one of the favorites that I've written so far. And this is for my man, Kevin Durant. So let me talk a little bit real quick about the style of his poem, because when you're looking to write a poem about an athlete, you have to focus on a number of things. What do they do? What do they do best? What is their number? What is their style? What do they look like on the court? And more than anything with KD, yes, he's a great shooter, but he has this rhythm and he has this style that when he gets into his rhythm, it's like, just forget it. He's just a bucket. So I basically said, KD, be ball. And his style reminded me of a really jazzy rhythm. It had a lot of improvisation to it. And it just reminded me of visual jazz. So that's the rhythm that I tapped into for KD B-Ball. I'll give you a sneak peek of the picture at the end. KD B-Ball, he ball all the time. KD do it all with the ball all the time. 7 foot, fast break, KD, no breaks, crosses over, hesitates, stutter steps, ankle breaks, throws it down, shimmy shakes. KD be ballin', he ball all the time. KD do it all with the ball all the time. Crunch time, clutch time. KD, time to shine. Toes behind, three-point line. Wrist flick, touch twine. All-star, Olympian, scoring champ, MVP. KD, be ball, be KD. Ready to see a sneak peek? You ready? Boom, there you go. KD be ball, he ball all the time. There it is, Hoop Kings 2, new royalty. I hope you enjoy it when it comes out, and if it's already out, make sure you go buy it or go check it out from your local library. Just ask for it, Hoop Kings 2 by Charles R. Smith Jr.